So it's like, is Norway? Yeah, yeah. See, the current king of Norway. Yeah, see, that's who he's with. That's who he is. I didn't know. I wasn't sure what it was. He's with Harold V. Harold V. Oh no,
Is
wait,
that
yeah,
just
the current
is
king.
that
Yeah.
initial or is that his whole name V?
That just says Harold V. He's reigned since 1991.
Wow. Okay. Kind of like
King
Scott.
Olav was before that. Was his father.
Right.
So I guess Scott's, just trying to get where he is, where he is on the rolls here to be the king of Norway.
Well, Scott's often in the show referred to the king of other things right now. I wonder if the king of Norway and him have something in common on that level. Like, is there a mass? There's immigration issues in Europe. I wonder if Norway has the immigration problem that Scott has, like whenever he goes out and the people he attracts.
Right.
Maybe.
And the first law he's going to act is the state flower is a hot dog.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's not even a flower. So you're the
I'm the king.
Right.
Nobody tells me what time it is.
But so y'all know he mentioned it in previous shows. He's in Europe right now. I mean, this isn't any kind of an operational security issue that we're dealing with here, but he is. He's not on one of those Viking fjord cruises that look really nice. I think he's on a bus right now, eating a can of Lutefisk that they hand out. Right. It's anyway.
But I have to say, I'm surprised I was the first one out of the group to send him to send the picture he sent. Like he sent that picture of him sitting in the chair with that beer. I'm like, I can't believe I'm the first one to send something over AI to do this.
Yeah, you sent him that Michael Crichton video, Michael Crichton book, Eaters of the Dead. You know what I mean? It was about Vikings and them traveling around the world. Anyway, but hopefully he's having a good time out there.
Yeah,
that's a big trip to take with your entire family. Vacations can often be exhausting, but when you're going with people that you love and you're going with places that you actually kind of belong to, it's kind of nice because going to Norway would be great. Like, he's been to Ireland, like he talked about that in previous episodes, and now he's gone to Norway. He's our own Rick Steves, is what he is. He's our guy.
He's gonna come. We should have him start next time he goes, we'll do the live. Just bring him in live. He's just got that big elephant ear with a beard, and he's just chugging. He's got all over,
But he's at the Kroner General instead of the Dollar General because they're getting hand sanitizer and soap and stuff like that for the trip back home. Deals on stuff over there. But yeah, again, I imagine it's beautiful. Hopefully,
good for him.
The weather is a little better for them than it is in the States, and they're the heat dome that's sitting over most of the country. We've got a lot of things that are going on for us in general in the United States. One of the things we've seen as of late, which is becoming somewhat troubling, is incidents between the police and the public and vehicles, vehicles, whether it be police vehicles or whether it be people in vehicles using them in a manner that has created some, whether it's created some jeopardy for the police officer or not, gaining some high profile incidents. I mean, you can go back to what we've talked about in the show with people using vehicles to potentially run over ICE agents. And that's kind of dictating a lot of their policy. In the last few weeks, they've had some similar incidents. And everybody thinks the police are the only people that are impacting the tactics of vehicles with that. People watch these videos, and a lot of these folks, there's not a mental screening to go protest at an ICE facility. There's no hey, we've done a background on this guy, and we're sure he's not going to try to get in a vehicle, even though he's not even remotely involved in any of this other than wanting to protest, which is his right. But there's no way to screen this guy's going to jump in a vehicle and try to, run over an ICE agent or interfere with it in some way. We don't know if he's got a weapon on him or not because there's no clear bag check at one of those protests, things like that. It's kind of, you got to hope with what you got to hope with. And then, the fact of the matter, and we've talked about this, we'll call it out when we can call it out. The feds don't wear body cameras. That's changing. Obviously, Tom Holmes has come out and talked quite a bit about how that needed to be. But again, we realized on our end, the local level, when we were all being told how awful we were, how much help they provided for us. They can also, create, in this era of paranoia, why aren't these things released immediately to the public and things along those lines? And there are so many factors that impact that stuff. But there's an incident right now. Go ahead. There's an incident right now that's going on There's an incident right now that's going on in Mississippi.
Right, Mississippi.
Unfortunately, that involved the death of a 1-year-old.
1-year-old girl.
Was
1-year-old girl, right?
Yeah, 1-year-old boy, I think. That was struck by a bullet supposedly fired by a police officer into a vehicle because he felt he was about to be, run over. At least that's the idea of of approaching vehicle. Well, all of these things have to be investigated. No one, whether it's a police officer with the agency or whether it's a suspect that they're investigating, police agencies are not going to say, we firmly believe that this is the case without all of the facts being collected and information being obtained. But again, Ben Crump has descended because unfortunately it involved a racial component of this, as many of these cases do. And unfortunately, at times, the only times we ever hear about it, even though it could have happened in other places to other people involving other officers, there's always the racial component, and whoever was in charge is who I like and who I don't like can affect some of these things. We don't necessarily think we're going to solve any of those problems here today with this podcast, but we want to talk to you as both firearms instructors and officers that have been involved in the job on the day-to-day level that never really left the ranks. Chris or I have not left the ranks of we're going to leave this work the same way we came into it, as rank and file officers, but we were involved officers. And one of the things we both did was firearms instruction and training. Him with K9, me with the training jobs that I had. Like I said, we were both very involved firearms instructors. And one of the things that we want to point, or some of the things we want to point out to people, are things that don't necessarily happen like you see them in the movies. And some of this stuff is as officers, we like to do funny shows and we like to joke and things like this, but this is obviously not a joking matter.
Right.
It's ironic that we're talking about cars and our resident car expert, Click and Clack from PBS, our car talk guy is not here, but Norway called and he had to go back home to the fatherland and get back to his Nordic roots. But that being said, Chris, your thoughts on some of this that you're seeing out there, and then we can kind of get into some of the details to better inform our listeners.
I mean, I think that this is just gets to be so much bigger than one aspect of what's going on in the world. I mean, Benjamin Crump, the guy's a clown. I mean, I just think for him, he just goes wherever that he thinks he can get a case. This whole, was the young man that passed away in Horn Island, Nolan West, that's not really working out for him as much as he hoped in regards to getting some type of civil case and making some money. So he's going over here. And I think, what happens is I think we need to start kind of thinking about, like, what's the basis of this? Like, when did people start thinking that they could run over police? And I'm going to tell you, and I don't know what kind of feedback we're going to get, but again, this is just my opinion. I think a lot of this stuff started when there's no consequences. And you have not only more assaults on police officers from people getting arrested or giving a lawful order to, all the way down through, like, well, I'm just going to run them over because they can't do anything. And there's no follow-up and there's no consequences. And when you talk about stuff, you have Benjamin Crump, this clown going down there to the policeman shot him, and allegedly something racial was said a week before or some other stuff, but just hanging their hat on some stuff. Why are we going down and saying, why does somebody have a 1-year-old with them when they're committing a crime? And what's the basis of that? On top of the fact of he brought his 1-year-old on a crime when after the police with a 2,000-pound missile and got a child killed. So why are we even discussing the secondary portion of it? Okay, now, with that being said, there are people out there to be like, well, you could have got him later, blah, blah. Okay, you could have got him later, but number one, you have to put yourself in the officer's shoes at the time, because, the statute, we've always talked about this, is, great bodily harm to myself or somebody else. Mm-hmm. So were there people behind him? Were there other officers? Were there other families that if this officer didn't take action, that, he would kill a family of 6, going to get toilet paper and toys or whatever. So we have to focus on the reality and on the details of the case. And it's horrible that a child lost their life. Horrible. And I am not going to sit here and blame anybody at this point because the facts of the case aren't out, except the person who brought their 1-year-old child to commit a crime. That's the only person I could blame right now until the facts of the case come out. Number one. Number two, you cannot sit in judgment and say, he could have dove out of the way, he could have did this, he could have done that. The fact remains is that he has to live with the fact that this person drove at him. He was in fear for his life. He took a shot and he killed a child. And no matter what way you slice it, the bottom line is he's going to hold that with him for the rest of his life. Even though he could blame the suspect for bringing his child, he has to live with that. And what the people have to realize is that we do not have to get out of the way, because not only do we take an oath to protect ourselves, but to protect innocent people. And what would have been said if this officer let this car go and it hit a bus coming out of the Walmart with 6 orphans in it, coming out of Walmart doing, their daily, you know, purchases to make bags for the homeless. Like, you have to take the facts of the case what it was. And I just think it's happening more and more and more because there's no consequences. Everybody's allowed to get away with stuff. And it's a problem that we have to solve at the foundation.
Well, the city we're talking about is called Senatobia, and it involved an incident where the officers there responded to the local Walmart reference a retail theft call. And we've been on plenty of those. We know what the deal is. Some of them, it's just like based upon the nature of what we're hearing from the people that are calling in, which could be Walmart, loss prevention, security, private citizens, the animated level in which people are providing information, things along those lines. You go there, you're going to deal with it. There's no set hey, I'm going to set up here, I'm going to set up there. There are things we can kind of do to better prepare ourselves for it, but you never generally pull right up in front of the place. You never are usually walking from a different angle in case it does go bad. You have somebody running out of the store. If you pull right up to the store, they might already be gone by the time you get there. There are all sorts of things that are happening that you either follow by policy or you just do from experience, because there's a set policy on every agency on how you approach a retail theft call. The information is different for each and every one of them. The conditions are different for everyone. But when you get there and you're walking up and there's maybe chaotic radio information, or the information is being translated from the caller to the dispatcher who's giving out the information to the officers, how your dispatch works are you dispatched locally, like your own agency dispatches these things and understands what's going on, or is it kind of a consolidated dispatch where they're dispatching with multiple different agencies involved in this situation? Not knowing any of that, it's really hard to say, why does this happen here or didn't happen there? We respond to thousands upon thousands of retail theft calls every single day.
Right.
If you think I'm joking, go to places where we stop responding and wonder why you can't get anything off of a shelf because it's either out of business, or the fact of the matter is that everything has to be locked up because retail theft was so prevalent. And it got worse in some places where they just said, we're going to turn a blind eye to it. Well, that's cool if you live in a blue state and that's what you want. But blue state ideas don't stay just relegated to blue states. They also go to red states, and red state people go, hey, man, this is what they're doing in those places. Why don't we do the same thing? And those retailers are in a red state expecting a red state police response, but we go, hold on, nationally, this is what happens to us if we do it. The loss prevention folks have not released any video from Walmart at this point, according to the article.
Well, that's policy, though.
The case, but that's policy. Yeah. That's policy until the case is, properly investigated and vetted through the process. And the media likes to make that as it's like some sort of a conspiracy cover up, particularly because this is now has a racial component of it, because all of the victims,
how is it? How does this
become the shooting?
racial?
At least not they're not victim. They're victim suspects. I don't know what to call them in this, because supposedly they were involved in some sort of a retail theft component of, the theft of baby clothing as well as diapers. When the police arrived, they get there and maybe they identified this vehicle as, the target vehicle for it. They're driving away. Of course, who's available to the media to make up the story? And like we always say this all the time, whoever gets to the lie first wins the story. And now you're just fighting an uphill battle to defend whatever it was. We've seen this over and over and over again with an irresponsible media that's agenda driven. I'm sorry, folks. It is what it is. I'm not saying that this is right. That's not my point. But like the media, the fourth estate is the by far most irresponsible state of your government. I don't care what you say. You can blame the police. You can blame politicians. You can blame judges. But the bottom line is the most irresponsible component of your free society lies within the media. I'm telling you right now, it's about clicks, whether it be on the right or the left. Everybody's talking about this. But when you get there as an officer, you don't know what's going on. This person's driving away, but they're driving away in a fast manner right towards where I'm at. The other component of that is, Chris, you and I can testify to the fact of like, how much training did we do with police officers with a vehicle coming at you and a decision-making process, as well as accuracy of shooting while you're, like everybody's like, you would just stand still like they do in the movies. Like they do in the movies. That resolute officer, no matter what race he is, knows exactly what to do, and he gets that shot off the first time, and the car flips and blows up in the air like Roadhouse. Doesn't happen like that, folks. You're making this decision about, do I stand still? Do I get out of the way? Is this person veering towards me? These are split-second things you're talking about, even at like speeds as low as 10, 15 miles an hour. A car can turn into you. Police officers don't get that level of training. You know why? Because resources and funds haven't been dedicated to that. We would have to get a car.
The DOJ hasn't done it. Yep.
Nobody's given us any resource to help with the decision-making process with that. The only decision you can make in training so you don't get killed or you don't cause any damage is that, like, you get out of the way. Like, you try to get out of the way. But the bottom line is we're still held accountable for not doing what we need to do for taking action. Think about when we don't take action during active shooter incidents. This person, like people think it's really simple. It's not that simple.
No,
it's not that simple about I'm gonna honestly, ballistics. Cars are designed to take shots through windshields, but when they go through windshields, everybody thinks it's a straight shot. Your angle, the angle of the bullet, what you did with the gun, what the car's doing, how cold it is, how warm it is, changes what happens with a bullet inside of that car in ways that I have personally seen in training, because I have conducted training with special operators and things like that. I'm not trying to say I'm this high-end guy, but the bottom line is we were like, with rifles, with shotguns, with pistols, we were like, never expected to see that. That's kind of weird. The trajectory of a windshield is designed to take rocks and things flying at it, and it changes it and deflects those things. If a round comes from inside of a vehicle and goes somewhere else, you go, I wasn't really expecting that. There are some patterns that you can look at. There are some experts that could clearly come on the show and say that, but there are so many different factors of what's going on with it. What's the ballistic capability of the round? What's the, what's like I said, what's the speed of the vehicle? All of these things factor that people think like, how could that baby have been shot? Let me explain something else to you folks. If you're in a state that has a tint law, that everybody loves tints on their cars, particularly in the warmer climates, police officers can't see that there's a baby sitting on somebody's front front seat on a person's lap with an airbag that's just as capable of killing that baby if that person crashed into something. There are so many factors in this that what's going to happen is logic is not going to rule the day, and the irresponsible will be rewarded, just like the irresponsible were with chokeholds. Let's say they call them chokeholds. Vascular neck restraint is when performed and trained properly, can really save lives. I don't care what anybody says. You do any bit of exposure to jiu-jitsu and you see, like, everybody loves MMA so much that they're doing it in the White House lawn. That's a component of what they do. Like, people aren't dying from vascular neck restraints, but because somebody dies like George Floyd due to myriad of factors, and you get the pathologist that Ben Crum wants to bring in, those are tools that are taken away from officers, except in extreme situations of deadly force. And if you're never trained to do it, because everybody's saying for policy they are banned except for these reasons, guess what banned except for these reasons means to the average police officer? You're never going to do it, and we're never going to fucking train you to do it. So if you do have to do it, you're going to probably do it wrong and most likely end up killing somebody because you were justified in using deadly force. Either way, somebody's going to perish because we're afraid of this. The same thing is happening now with vehicles. Everyone around the country is going, you know what, I'll just run the cop over. And if I get away, I get away, because I don't have to stop, because they won't chase me. They'll jump out of the way. And I think, well, at one, whatever, without, again, understanding how use of force works, how deadly force works, how it's the decision-making process of every officer. Chris and I could be standing relatively close to each other in a parking lot. A vehicle's coming at us. I may make a different decision than Chris, and they can't say, well, why did you do that and why didn't Chris do that? They can use that against him, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, I was at a different vantage points, even if it's 2 inches away from him, from seeing something differently than he did. I might have processed that an infant was in there. Chris might have not have been able to process, because Chris was locked in on the thing that could kill him, and that's the driver of the vehicle. These are all things that people don't want to hear or acknowledge or understand, but I'm guarantee you this is going to continue to happen and continue to happen. And it's going to be another things that police officers are going to be told, you can't do that no matter what the circumstances. Most agencies already have that policy, wouldn't you say? That you can't shoot into a moving vehicle absent deadly force?
Right. But then they're going to have to back up the fact of, like, okay, I let this car go at a high rate of speed, and it kills a family. It kills a person just sitting in the car or something. Well, then they're going to come back and say, well, you let it go. Well, okay. Can we just pick one? Like seriously, because you know, I understand that circumstances dictate tactics and stuff like that. But if we decide that okay, this is just a retail theft, we'll catch him later. We got a plate, we got a picture. We'll let him go or them go. Then they go down and they harm somebody. Then it's going to come like so. Either society as a, my opinion is a society as a whole wants us to take action because when you take action, it reduces crime because people think about the fact of, okay, if I go do crime A or crime B, they are going to come after me and there are consequences. They are willing to take the risk of a civilian possibly getting injured or killed because if you look at what happens on all of those or 99.9% of those, the policeman's put in a predicament because of the choice of the suspect. And the suspect is the one that chose to make the decision to come commit a crime. I think as a whole society really wants us to do that. But, I was just talking about this with Debbie last night. I mean, you're going to see it and you see it now. You see like, people being allowed to make up the lies that they're making up on, with this Charlie Kirk assassination, with this Nolan West, the fortunate young man who died on Horn Island, and all these people are lying and trying to make stuff up that is going to trickle down to what the police can do from an actional from behavior and action. And I think people need to start realizing that yes, bottom line is police work sometimes is an ugly business. But ultimately, it's not like I don't think this guy woke up and said, I'm going to kill a 1-year-old today. I think he woke up wanting to get through his shift in one piece, and this guy created the situation that put the policeman in. Now, again, we are held to a higher standard and we are paid to make quicker decisions than most, but you cannot train for anything. Like how do you even train? Okay, if a car's coming at me at a high rate of speed, I have to look, react, look, react, and the cars come. Like, how do you train for that? Number one, without getting hurt. Number two, what happens if I dive out of the way? Then I get hurt. I can no longer do the job, and he goes down and he hits. Like there's so many factors that could cost so much money and so much time that I think people are focusing on. They're focusing on race and whatever, and when they do that, the media does not come out with what you just said, Shaun. When you strike a windshield, it's not going to go straight through. It's going to deflect. It may even ricochet. There's so many things a bullet can do. And just because, and you see this with this whole Charlie Kirk thing and the last shooting, I don't recall what it was, but it went through a window and it ricocheted. From a scientific standpoint, bullets do things at a static situation. But when you put in other things, a windshield, movement, whatever, it does different things because of physics. But what I'm trying to get at is let's take the whole scenario and let's get to its core. I mean, we're going to have to either take action to take this back to prevent this from happening. Now, is it going to happen? Absolutely, because you're always going to have people that are going to try. But you can't train for it. And if you make it a policy that we just don't chase or whatever, then your retail thefts and everything go up on top of the fact of they're going to drive like crazy and kill somebody. And how do we prevent that? And I just think I think law enforcement is just in a catch-22 along with society, because you need to make a decision. Either you want a lawful society or you don't.
Well, and I think, Chris, you and I are old enough to say this because we can remember the days when Democrats and Republicans all had similar views on law and order and what you could do when you disagreed with the process. Some of the recent statistics come out now. You'll say these are FBI statistics that are being put out by the DOJ, Trump administration, DOJ, and you're already like people said about the Obama administration, all of these things. These are all hyper sensationalized. And do you trust the watchers? Nobody's watching the watchers kind of crap. But the bottom line is one of the numbers is that they reported over 90,000 officer assaults nationwide. In the previous years. They're saying it's like a record high, multi-year here for this. Targeted vehicles incidents are up the same way. Now, mind you, we're getting the high-profile ones involving with ICE and the unfortunate death of the woman in Minneapolis. It's changing some of the policy with that as to what they need to do and how they need to go about that. But one side is really trying to do what it can, and that's the government's responsibility in this. In a responsible society, it's not. We don't live in a society that we say we don't care about the individual's rights. We care about what the overall mission was. People will tell you that that's the case, but I'm going to tell you, rank and file, line level officers understand that every single time. But they still got to go out and execute the mission that our elected officials who won the most recent election are telling us what to do. The problem with a lot of this stuff is you're seeing not like percentage increases like 1 or 2% or things like that. You're talking like 3,000, 13,000% or 1,300% increase in these kind of assaults against officers. Every single day you pick up social media at the same time. Every single day you see a 8,000 increase in death threats against police officers. You also have people that don't want to do the work anymore. They want to come into this to deal with this because they're so underappreciated, and no one wants to go, well, if I go home tonight, people could be outside of my house protesting, and these could be people that are my neighbors. That actually know me, but they are so ginned up by a 24-hour news cycle and social media that it's become this point. If you don't think that impacts the way police officers look at the world, I'm going to tell you, folks, it does. And here's how, in most cases, it manifests itself. I'm not going to do anything to get involved in any of this.
Right.
I don't want to be the person that's subject to death threats or my family and things like that because I'm trying to do what's right. And I didn't even do it. I had nothing to do with it. We don't think like that as a society in the United States right now. We've got to justify what we're doing based upon what a politician who will never walk within the ranks of what we need to do, whether it be I'm an illegal immigrant here just trying to make my way, or a police officer that's trying to enforce immigration law. None of the people that are screaming about all this stuff are actually standing there and doing it. And the people that are inserting themselves into the middle of this are misinformed citizens that are going to get themselves hurt or killed. And police officers are like, everybody at these protests, everywhere I go, I'm taking a guy into custody that literally was shipped here from Venezuela, taken out of prison because he was molesting people. He was a murderer. But you're telling me, because I'm taking the action that I am, that I'm the murderer. As an agent, I'm the awful human being. If you don't think that impacts like what an officer is thinking whenever he's out there, because that incessant drumbeat of hatred towards him,
right.
You're insane. You're insane.
Right.
If you think that both sides need, there's only one side that needs to be responsible in this. I've said it before. We're not subjects. We're citizens. Citizens have a greater responsibility than subjects. We don't work for kings. We don't listen to kings. We go in and we vote and we hope for the best, but we can make decisions based upon these things from there. Some things are good. Some things are bad. But the bottom line is that there's a process here that we don't want to follow anymore. And you wonder why more of these vehicular incidents are being involved in tragic people. It's tragic that people are being killed. A 1-year-old child should never have had to deal with that. Who brought him into that? And what level of training did those officers receive prior to that in the decision-making process with that? Do you know the resources that would take? If you want this from police officers, one, you better start fucking paying them better. You better start asking for guys that have competed on levels that, if NIL can pay a guy that's never thrown a pass in college millions of dollars to come there and do that level of competition, that level of pressure. Do you think all of us face that? Absolutely. Right. We don't even face that in law enforcement training. You know what resources it would take to be like, all right, even if we just did this with training that you can do with, those goggles you can put on and you think you're in the virtual world of dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
It says it gets people's heart rates up. It says, but it is not the same thing
of
listening to an engine revving at you, you making a decision for your life to either dive out of the way and let further harm be done, let nothing be happened, or I have to stop this because I have no other choice. And I've maybe trained on this like you did by watching a movie. This is what happens in the movie. This is what I think is going to happen. If you think those factors don't impact police officers that are new to this work or have never been tested in this. Now, I'm not saying that what happened there with this sergeant that has been since placed on administrative leave, and they have since miraculously found through some New York Times reporters from Mississippi Today that this guy made some sort of a racial statement that another officer reported, and now all of a sudden that's coming out. Again, maybe that happened. Maybe these things did happen. But remember, folks, who gets to the lie first and who's trying to, with an
Exactly.
agenda-driven media, you're
Yep.
not going to necessarily get factors that really mattered to that moment. To
Right.
that moment. I know as offensive that may sound to you, the bottom line is that it has no bearing on what this guy did, whether it was excessive or not yet. And you're not going to know this early on in the process. And the demand for facts is not a cover up. It's let's make sure that all the facts are tried for that. We do that for suspects. We would do that for that woman if that child was harmed because she drove away and drove into another vehicle and
Right.
she hurt somebody else. She hurt her own child in that process. The state would take all of these factors into consideration before they decided to take her child away from her. Or if that child was killed, they would charge her with vehicular manslaughter or, some sort of irresponsible thing like that. Why do we not want to afford that to the people that have been asked to come there to address that situation? From what I understand, it was an ongoing issue with that Walmart in that town. Those officers
Right.
were regularly dealing with these things. I'm going to tell you, in my career, Chris, you probably can say the same things. There were dozens of times that I was like, I'm making a decision here about getting out of the way of this vehicle. It's a thing called officer created jeopardy. Like you
Correct.
literally stand in front of that vehicle and like, I said stop, and you had other options to get out based upon the nature of the crime. Retail thefts have been going on forever. Are you going to shoot into a car to stop somebody from riding away with Sally Beauty Supply products or,
Right.
a stolen vacuum? No, you're going to be like, we'll get him. We'll catch up to him later. But sometimes you don't have a choice. You're trying to get out of the way. You're trying to
Right.
get past those circumstances, and you have to take action. It doesn't inherently mean it's some race-baited cover-up. And
Right.
again, to take these things away from officers and say, this is so bad, this is so bad, this is so bad. It is bad. You're right. It's terrible. We have to go out and deal with these things. But now you're going to create a society which is way less safe for you. Because
Right.
like Joe Colds and now vehicular assaults will be now a thing that we're like so beat upon, but never trained to deal with effectively, like a decision-making process. If the DOJ wants to start throwing money around to improve these things, I don't remember the Barack Obama administration, the Biden administration, the Trump administration saying every police department in America needs to have resources dedicated to them to help make decisions about these things. And we're going to supply that to them instead of the Ukrainians or to the war in Iran. Like these are things like, hey, let's make some solid decisions about making better cops and get them the resources that they need, and then study the data that comes from that. 90% of the officers at this time did this. What were the conditions? Were they similar? Was something different?
Right.
We don't. We want all these. We want perfection without looking for perfection. With properly equipping, training, providing the societal support for people to want to do this.
Right.
You could have 20,000 people that want to be police officers right now, but if they're going to go into a situation where they're going to know like why I don't want to do this, it's going to generally come from the public's reaction for it. I mean, I could go on for hours about this, but
No,
this
I
is
agree.
a terrible tragedy that one way or the other, we're going to find out who acted irresponsibly in this. But don't think that the greater impact from society in general for saying like, oh, it was so awful, and the media drumbeat of like what happened with people inserting themselves in the middle of law enforcement actions, that states are actually creating laws that are saying you have to stay 15 feet away from a police officer when he's doing his job.
Yeah.
Like, dude, when we were new officers, we would
Right.
have laughed at that. We'd have been like, what? People do that. We don't need a
Right.
law for that. Now we're actually having to create laws that'll be challenged in court to say, oh, all these freedoms, whatever, depend upon who your Supreme Court is staffed by and everything else. Like, this is the ridiculous stuff that we don't pay attention to because we'd rather know about our feelings in school than civics and
Right.
understand what's going on.
And that's why everything comes up. Like everything, the first thing happens, race. No, okay. Listen to me. It's got nothing to do. This is okay. There's race. There's a race issue with every race. You have bigots in every race. Let's just put that out there for sure.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is this is our go-to now. This is our go-to, not the fact that there's a crime being committed, not the fact that there's, the stuff's locked up. I can't even go get razors. I have to order razors through Amazon because it gets here quicker in 2 days than me standing in the Walgreens waiting for somebody to unlock 15 other cabinets to come help me.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. It's a race issue when it comes to the culture and problems we have to solve. But I said this before, we have all this money that's going to the Ukraine and into Iran and all this other stuff. Why don't we solve the problem And that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
yes, are there more crimes committed by Africans American? Yes, by statute, by numbers. I'm sorry, by statistics, by numbers. So let's solve that problem. But everything now is coming to the fact of it's race, it's race, it's race. But it's not. It's a problem that we're not trained properly, and not only us, but civilians.
Society's
Yeah,
not trained. They're not being like, hey, look, this, I know you're aggravated about certain circumstances that have happened over the history of this nation, but the bottom line is retailers still want people to pay for the product before they call the police. Like,
right,
all this is going to do now is make people retreat from, like, lowering the cost of things for you. Like, or
right,
the Walmart shuts because the police go, look, we're not going to go there anymore because we need to make sure that all of this is going on. Like I wish, like, people were willing to do ride-alongs as much as they're willing to sit and watch videos incessantly throughout the day. Now, most agencies right now, staffing couldn't handle that many people wanting to come and do ride-alongs. But, like, I look, I don't know. Like, when I read this, it's like, oh my God, this
right,
this woman's 1-year-old son was killed because a police officer had to shoot into a vehicle or shot into a vehicle recklessly. I don't know what happened. Nobody
right,
knows what happens. There's no way
right,
to know. But right now, we're already making this something that's, look, if you want people to buy into it, media, stop immediately racing towards the race issue. Let's just
right.
look at the
Yes,
facts, because that's what's
facts.
going to make this society move forward. Not the
Correct.
idea, like, look, we have to address this. You're right. Like, officers feeling like they need to defend their lives by shooting into vehicles, whether they're justified in doing it or not. We clearly, as a profession, need to address this. But one, I'm going to tell you folks, we don't have the resources, money, or time to do it right now, because everybody keeps saying we're always wrong and no one else is accountable for this. Every major organization, police department in the country, is staffing numbers for shortfalls by the thousands, not like a
Thousands.
dozen.
Right.
Thousands of people are not there to address these things. And then when we get mad about Taylor Swift having her freaking wedding, taking cops away from the work for that. And although, hey, look, let's be fully transparent as a podcast. We made fun of that quite a bit, like the
Right.
selling of her trash from that thing and the fact that she took up the time. But she did give $2 million to, like, resources to, like, NYPD and NYFD officers that have died
Right.
in the line of duty. That's
Right.
awesome that she did that. But the bottom line
Right.
is like, when you're already short staffed and you have 1,000-person wedding, you are taking officers either to work overtime details, and of those she paid $160,000 for that, for an event like that. Chris, I'm
Yep.
going to tell you, I mean, like, just I don't run a security company like that you do. But for a 1,000-person event, you're getting away with $160,000 bill for that, like that, to
Somebody
a
got.
major venue. That's a deal. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm like,
Talk
man.
about getting government cheese. That is fucking government cheese right there. But the bottom line is like, we don't have enough cops to handle the regular work, the real
Right.
problematic stuff, and we're going to add all these things to it. Oh, I donated $2 million to that. Awesome. Really great for those families that lost their loved ones in the line of duty as first responders. But, like, folks, wake up. I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, this is a total bitch session on our part, but, like, this problem, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, based upon the way that our current system is set up, is not going to be solved. It's not going to be
No.
solved until we make some serious decisions about domestic issues before we're worrying about what's going on elsewhere in this world that will be incessantly never-ending wars and things like that. That's just my take on this. We have plenty of issues here that we could save people's lives, particularly a 1-year-old boy that was sitting on the lap of his mother in a parking lot in a vehicle that may or may not have been involved at this point in a retail theft that didn't have
Right.
to happen either. You know what I mean?
Right. It is unbelievable, and I think, and I think the other thing is we just have to go to the facts. Like, this thing that's coming out about the cop saying a racial slur a week ago or whatever. Okay, all right, that I don't know if that has anything to do with this case. I really don't, but.
Right.
I'm going to go on the fact of that I highly doubt that it had to do with the reason he shot into the car. Again, let's wait for all the facts to come out. But the problem is as a society, we go right to the race and right to, like, wait a minute. We need to deal with that absolutely as a society. But in these instances that involve policemen and that policemen that have to shoot or policemen that have to become violent in situations, let's get the facts of the case. Let's just get the facts of the case, because that's just like saying, okay, well, there was an armed robbery down the block. Oh, so it was a male, of this race or a male of that race. No, you don't know the facts. You can't say it. Let's get the stuff, put it together, and let's go. And why don't, as a police department, we debrief it? Okay, let's start debriefing stuff with society. Like
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
is what it is. But I think that everybody's jumping to the conclusion in regards to this whole. I don't even know what to call it, Shaun. This
Well, it's
whole.
policy. Policy. What happens is a bunch of chiefs get together and say, "Hey, here's what we need to do. We need by policy. We need to say that these things are no longer permissible, except for this. When you say except for this, you better fucking train cops for except for
Right,
this. Like
right,
except for this. Here's how you do a proper neck vascular neck restraint. When they said you're
right.
no longer allowed to do them, guess what we stopped doing? We stopped doing anything remotely close to touching a person's neck or getting
Yep.
them under control. Like, because if you yoke a guy right now and you got your arm up underneath him, you have to sit there and justify it because the media is going to come out and say, look, it was a chokehold. They'll use these stupid terms. And our leaders don't stand up and say, no, 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 no. Like, look, low frequency, high impact needs to be trained just as much as go stand on the line and put paper holes in a paper target. You
Yep.
have to
I
train people for these things, and we have to have the resources, the staffing, the time. Like if we wanted to do it live, every car that we seized, we could potentially use for something like that. But who's going to drive the car to get shot at? I mean, like
right,
seriously. I mean, like who's going to drive the car to not get shot at? Like, at what
right.
point is the guy like this is nearly impossible stuff. There's not like crash test dummies that'll do that for us. We have to figure that
No.
out without any real training under the most stressful moments of your life. And I'm made fun of because I had nothing better to do other than be a cop.
Right, right,
But what are
right.
you
Just because
gonna?
I got
What do you think you're gonna get for that? I mean, like
right,
you're lucky it's not happening more. I'm gonna tell you thousands upon thousands of times. This is happening like daily in the United States. I go to a call. People use cars in the United States. We're an automobile based society. If that's new to you, I'm not sure where you've been. Get out of your freaking
right,
stream and figure it out. And we go there and we have to make these decisions all the time, all the time. Like somebody just wants
yeah,
to drive away in a domestic. I got to get out of the way of the car. I have to set myself up for tactics for that. We do that. The one time somebody's coming in a tense, rapidly evolving situation, tragedy occurs, and all of a sudden we start thinking Ben Crumb's like the guy that's going, "Oh, this is just inherently racist, and this is what happens. It's happening all over the place." And because
right,
it's happening with people inserting themselves in the middle of ICE operations and law enforcement, do you think that's just going to stay from immigration? It's going to turn
right,
into any incident in which a police officer. We talked about this years ago. Any incident where a police officer has to come and do his job, you feel you have the right to insert yourself into the midst of it, creating a further tense and rapidly evolving situation. Let the
yeah,
bad, if you think cops are bad, let the bad police officer pay for that. It's not your job to try to fix that in the moment of that going on. Like, I don't see any of these people signing up to go to the Ukraine. I don't see any
no,
of them getting ready
right,
to get on like on their own, getting on. Hey, I want to go help the Navy deal with the
right,
Strait of Hormuz. But you'll get in the
right,
middle of the same level of deadly force type situations because it's not a bomb. Doesn't mean that people can't die, and it can't
right.
be. You can't be distracted in the process. That's the whole process. The point of this. Obviously, this is a major league bitch session that we're coming up with. But folks, we need to address it. You're right, 100%. I'm not
Yes,
siding with the cop or the lady that was involved in the retail theft whose
correct.
baby died, which is an
Right,
immeasurable tragedy for everyone involved in this, particularly
right.
our society. But the bottom
Yep.
line is it's going to keep happening if we
And
don't dedicate it the right sources and we don't give the proper support where it needs to be and realize that in circumstances like that, people are going to make mistakes because it's tremendous pressure that you
And
can't
yeah, I mean, I think yeah, right, and I agree. I mean, I think that this is just, I don't want to call it a bitch session, but I think it's just, this is what, and I'm with you. I'm not picking the side of the police, or I'm not picking the side of the female. The enforcement actor, the enforcement thing Cohen Wiley, this 1-year-old boy was shot, but I think it's just, I mean, let's call it a bitch session, but this is a societal bitch session. I
right.
think it's on both sides. I don't think people are trained. I think people are just the way the society is right now. I think people are just, they want to create controversy every day, and they don't want to sit down and have and problem solve. And I just think that this is a situation where people, and again, this is going to have to get fixed. And the fear that I have is that it's going to get bigger. And you see it every day, from when you watch hearings in the Senate to when you watch people talk to each other on the street. The first thing is that lies come out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to scream above each other, and nobody wants to come to that common ground. And listen, I'm the first one to say I don't know everything. And let's just face it, throughout our careers, I learned stuff from tactics from you. I don't know everything. I learned stuff about cars from Scott. I learned, and I'm open to learning because, and my first reaction is, okay, that's really not my thing, but I need to know this. I need to learn this because number one, it makes me a better person. Number two, it helps me understand what you are going to do or what you know. So when we go do something, whether it's talking about a debrief or it's talking about a operation plan or whatever the fact is, now you know where everybody's coming from and you come to a common plan where everybody has an idea of what's going on. And guess what happens? You go in, you attack the operation, and when everything's said and done, problems are solved.
Right. Right.
So,
and again, right now, we're not willing to spend the money on the training we provide for other people in uniform. And as long as we're not willing to do that, you're going to continue to get these kind of mistakes from people that, had nothing better to do, as you would say. If you're right. you think it's always the cop's fault. Look, government needs to take on that responsibility.
Yes.
But the bottom line is, we have a history in our nation of when government took on that responsibility, it really didn't get much better. It actually, in some ways, got worse. It got worse for the end user. That's you, the listener, the non-sworn officer, or the non-retail thiever, or whatever it is, or irresponsible parent. It gets worse for you. Taxes go up. All of these things that are happening. Hey, look, folks, we're just trying to point things out to you that there are two sides to every story, and some of the factors that may have impacted this are not necessarily just because either side is full of bad people.
Yes.
They're full of people that are like, hey, man, look, I will look at social media all day and I watch people boosting stuff, raving stores, and everybody's loving it and liking it, whatever. You're conditioned to think that. As a police officer, you look at these things and think, man, they're just breaking the laws all day and everybody's just celebrating it and blaming the cops for it. Or we're not doing anything, or we're doing too much. And you become burned out and you say, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to pick up the pieces. That ain't good law enforcement either. You know what I mean? So that's just the point of all this is this is awful. When you read it, you get sick as a cop. You're like, oh my God. We've all held little kids that died. It sucks. It sucks. Whether it's just from natural causes or something that was an unfortunate accident or something that was really malicious. Yeah. And you don't want that to happen. But in the same sense, you look around and go, but why is it only our responsibility to try to work on fixing this? I get because we're held to a higher standard, but we should all live by a higher standard. That's what makes America kind of
correct,
or what used to. And
right.
And again, we'll wrap it on that because
I agree with you. I think we all need to have the higher standard, and unfortunately sometimes that higher standard is the fact of, and I do it daily with my marriage and my children and my career and my businesses, and I do it daily where I have to step up as a man and go, you know what, I did not do this right, so I had to take my consequences, but I learn from it and I try and do better the next time. And I think that as a society as a whole, I think we really need to start looking at that instead of pointing fingers and help each other. I mean, I really think that, if my wife or my children make a mistake or whatever, or the people that work for me, listen, it's done. But what can we do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? And I think as a society, we need to start doing it.
One other thing that I'd say about a higher standard is also helps to have a higher power. And whatever that higher power is for you, go to it. Because we can't solve these things as individuals. We have to work together, and we have to work with a higher power to do that, whether it's a commitment to other human beings, it's a commitment to a God of some sort. Higher powers will definitely help you if you want to live by a higher standard. And we have to do it across the board. Agreed.
Well, everybody, thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please go to where you get your podcasts, download, subscribe, leave a rating, review. Please tell your friends about the podcast. We're really trying to make this world a better place, and we can't do it without your support. If you have an idea for a show, want to be a guest, have an idea for a guest, a comment or suggestion, please email us at 3copstalk@gmail.com. And please go to 3cops.com and you can find old episodes there. And you can also leave us an email there. Again, thank you all for listening and have a blessed day.